views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
And hello and welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Daren Jaime. Today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough, as well as across New York City. Coming up on today's show, we go front and center with the new stimulus package. What should you expect moving forward? We'll have details. And then we'll talk with the not-for-profit organization offering children, youth, and families the tools and resources they need, hoping to realize their fullest potential. And then a little later on in the show, we'll introduce you to a Bronx Community College's Disability Services, who's helping to create an academically inclusive environment for students with disabilities. And then finally, we're going to catch up on some tips. How can you actually achieve your New Year's resolutions and goals? Yes, we're in the middle of January, but it's still all possible. So stay tuned because all this and much more is heading your way. Right now, we're officially open. And hello, everyone, and welcome to Open. I am Daren Jaime, and we welcome you to today's show. Today is Wednesday, January 20th, and you're watching Open, a live program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight into your TV set. We also want to welcome our viewers as Open is broadcast simultaneously on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. We thank you for joining us on the MNN channel. We also encourage you to stay connected to us via our social media platforms at BronxNet TV. Well, a lot has certainly been going on throughout the course of the past week, and a lot is happening right now. We can't take you through everything, but we can take you through some things with our Bronx updates. We start off with news about the coronavirus. New York City continues to deal with the coronavirus spread, and New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio announced that Bronxites can actually expect to get vaccines at Yankee Stadium. Our BronxNet reporter, Sanji Lopez, brings us the story.
With over 300,000 New Yorkers having received COVID-19 vaccinations, Mayor Bill de Blasio recently announced that Bronxites can expect Yankee Stadium to serve as a mass vaccination site. This move is part of the mayor's push to set up 250 vaccination locations to meet the ambitious goal of inoculating 1 million New Yorkers by the end of January.
We are opening up 24/7 megasites. We talked yesterday about Citi Field, and again, thanks to the New York Mets for stepping up. That's fantastic. That's going to serve a lot of people. Well, we've heard back from the New York Yankees. We welcome them into the fold too. We're working with them now to work out a plan to use Yankee Stadium as well, and that's going to be great for the people of the Bronx.
The announcement comes after community leaders, including the 161st Street Bid, campaigned for Yankee Stadium to join sports teams like the Mets, who expect to offer mass vaccination at Citi Field in Queens later this month.
There is an organic relationship between the Yankees and the Bronx. They call themselves the Bronx Bombers, for goodness sakes. So there's got to be this sort of give and take and effort to support. And now with the vaccination venue being on the verge of opening, we're delighted because they have a staff there of folks from the security people to the attendants to the management that can make this happen very effectively and very peacefully and safely.
The Bronx has seen some of the highest numbers of COVID infections, with 906 newly reported COVID-19 cases and 7 newly reported COVID-19 deaths since January 10th. So far, there are over 40 vaccination sites in the borough, with more expected to come, according to Mayor de Blasio.
The Bronx, and especially the South Bronx, have been so ravaged, decimated by this disease, that a move like this, giving Bronxites and people especially who live within the South Bronx neighborhoods of Melrose, Morrisania, Highbridge, Concourse, an opportunity to get the vaccine as easily and quickly as it can be done. It's fabulous. It's wonderful.
The mayor's main concern, keeping up with supply and demand.
We will run out of vaccine at some point next week unless we get a major new resupply, because so many New Yorkers want the vaccine and we have the ability to give it to them.
Plans to open the Yankee Stadium mass vaccination site here in the Bronx have yet to be revealed. In the meantime, 24-hour vaccination sites have opened in all 5 boroughs. You may check your eligibility status for the COVID-19 vaccine and make an appointment at a site near you by visiting nyc.gov/vaccine finder or calling 877-VAX4NYC. Reporting for BronxNet, Sanji Lopez.
And thank you, Sanji. We'll continue to bring you more information as the vaccination process becomes more available to Bronxites. In other news, we turn now to an ongoing survey from Rand Corporation that attempts to understand the views and values of those who are most at risk to the adverse effects of COVID-19 by surveying people with lower and middle incomes with a focus on communities of color. Our BronxNet reporter, Darissa White, brings us these details right now.
Between COVID-19 and calls for racial justice, 2020 was a turning point for Americans. Researchers at Rand Corporation conducted a research study using respondents from different racial and socioeconomic makeups to see how values differed between race and the COVID-19 crisis.
We wanted to take this opportunity of the pandemic and everything else that has been occurring to see if people had actually increased in their awareness of things that we know factor into health, including issues of race and racism.
Almost half of the people surveyed believe that systemic racism played a part in poor health of communities of color. In the Bronx, majority Black and brown neighborhoods like Hunts Point were one of the areas that reported the highest rate of COVID-19 cases in 2020, which led to the conversation around systemic racism and the limited access to quality health care in low-income areas. Dr. Chandra says the reason for this study is to hopefully help people understand the disproportionate impact COVID-19 has on communities of color.
And so we wanted to understand those American health values and mindsets, particularly amongst those who are hardest hit by the pandemic. People get that rural communities have challenges. People get that low-income communities have challenges. People do not get that there are disproportionate and differential access to opportunities to be healthy by race.
Out of the findings in the study, it found nearly 2/3 of respondents believe that the government should ensure health care as a fundamental right, and that white respondents are less likely to endorse the statement. Black respondents reported lower trust in government than white and Hispanic respondents. And respondents who see an opportunity for positive change believe society should prioritize expanding access to health care and reducing income inequality. Dr. Chandra's hope is that the conversation around healthcare, race, and equity is widened on a national scale. Reporting for BronxNet, Darissa White.
And thank you, Darissa. And that's all the time we have for our Bronx update. We encourage you to stay connected to us. Open has got more show. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back right after this.
There's a special election coming Tuesday, March 23rd. And if you live in neighborhoods like Bedford Park, Kingsbridge, Norwood, Riverdale, Wakefield, and Woodlawn Heights, you'll want to pay attention.
Your councilman, Andrew Cohen, is now a judge, and there's 5 candidates looking to replace him.
Whoever wins March 23rd will join New York City's primary lawmaking body, making decisions that affect you, your family, your home, and even your workplace.
The city council also serves as a check against the mayor, monitors other city agencies, and decides what gets built and what doesn't in your neighborhood.
The council also controls the city's budget, deciding what gets funded and how much you're going to be taxed to pay for it.
The borough's leading newspaper, the Riverdale Press, is partnering with BronxNet to host the first televised debate among all the candidates on Tuesday, February 2nd.
You can tune in beginning at 7 p.m. on Channel 67 Optimum, 2133 Files, and on BronxNet.tv.
You can learn everything there is to know about the District 11 City Council race and the candidates by visiting ballotpedia.org and riverdalepress.com.
Stay informed, and most importantly, make sure you mail your absentee ballot the day before Election Day, March 23rd, or safely head out to the polls to have your vote count and your voice heard.
Welcome back. Lawmakers signed an economic relief package providing a round of $600 stimulus packages to most Americans and partly restore the enhanced federal unemployment benefit, offering $300 for 11 weeks. The package also includes changes to the Families First Coronavirus Response Act and Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Plan. Now, in addition, the New York City Council approved a bill in which fast food workers cannot be fired without valid reason. Joining us now to share more details on this is the founding partner of the Boyd Law Group. We're pleased to be joined by Patrick Boyd. And Patrick, good to have you.
Thank you for having me, and Happy New Year to you, Daren.
Happy New Year to you. And I guess we're back at this place again where Americans will be receiving this stimulus package. Some say definitely not enough, but either way, the package is coming. Share with us a little bit about what we know about this particular round.
Sure. Well, maybe I'll start first with the checks that we know are coming out. There should be there's sort of three types of checks: a $600 check for individuals, $1,200 checks for couples, and then additionally a $600 check for those people who have dependents that are under 17 years old. So three types of checks. One thing to keep in mind with the checks, Daren, it is the case that the first two checks, that is the $600 check for an individual or $1,200 for couples, are graduated. That is, they're based upon the income of the person. So some people may not be receiving those, but certainly those who need it the most are going to be getting those two checks. The check for the dependents, on the other hand, is for everybody. So if you have a dependent at that under 17, you're going to get that $600 check for that dependent or for as many dependents as you have in those particular situations.
So do we find that there's huge differences between this one and the last one?
The allotment of money is obviously less. Some of the other provisions that we're going to talk about have meaningfully changed, and we'll get to those as we go along. But as to the checks themselves, they're going out. There's not a whole lot of deviation as to the issuance of them. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of impact to people. I think the interesting thing about the checks themselves, Daren, is just going to be whether or not with the new administration, there's going to be yet another check and perhaps a whole different matrix and administration administering those checks and using different standards for getting them out to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Let's talk about the regulations about returning to work. As we look, people will be returning to work. Some regulations concerning that.
Yeah, sure. So the FFCRA, which is that Families First Coronavirus Response Act, I have to always go through it step by step, is now going to change a little bit of the dialogue between employers and employees. Initially, under the CARES Act, if you were home and you were home because you needed to, for example, homeschool and help deal with your kids and their education because of the pandemic, or if you were home because you were sick, or if you were home because you were caring for somebody else that was sick, you were going to be able to very easily have a dialogue with your employer because your employer was going to be required to give you some allowances for staying at home and issuing that care for yourself or for others. That has meaningfully changed. Those entitlements under the FFCRA expired on December 20th, 2020. And so now if your employer says, time to get back to work, there are going to be very limited scenarios in which you can say, I'm sorry, I need to stay home and care for people. I think there's going to be a great deal of debate, Daren, on that subject, because I think there's going to be a lot of people who still have kids at home that need help with school. A lot of people who are still getting ill. I mean, the virus is still spreading meaningfully right at this juncture, but the law and the entitlements to that sort of almost requirement that employers give leave has now expired. And so the discussion with the employers is going to be very different. And I think the impact on who's going back to work and how is going to be very significant in this new year.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit more about the unemployment. When we talk about the topic of unemployment, there is the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, and that's that program that was created by the CARES Act. So when we talk about this, I understand there's a couple of changes. And one of the changes is the unemployment benefits have now been extended to 50 weeks from 39.
Correct. That's right. And so those people who were worried about that benefit expiring are going to have a chance to at least have some more security. I do think there was some meaningful insight in the short-term extension, not being that they necessarily intend as Congress not to extend further, but the idea that the new administration may decide on how much further to extend it and that they weren't going to make any long-term decisions at this point in time on that subject. So the extension from 39 to 50 is an extension. I'm not sure, as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure it's not going to be the last. Probably more importantly for some of your viewers, though, is this secondary issue. Initially, when you were applying for unemployment benefits under the CARES Act, right, all you had to do was go online and regularly file for unemployment. I'm unemployed, please send me my payments and my checks, and that was it. The new governance scheme now requires that a person claiming unemployment show evidence that they're entitled to that unemployment. So they're going to have to show, here's the income I was earning before the pandemic, then I lost my job, now I'm not earning it. Here's the dollar value I was earning for my small business, now I'm not earning it. Please send me my unemployment. Without the documentation and the submission of the documentation to show the loss of wage and the loss of the wage because of COVID, people are not going to be able to are not going to be able to easily collect that unemployment. There was a lot of debate, and I think for good reason, on whether or not this was an important component to put in there. But that's where it sits right now. And just to be clear, different states are probably going to administer to this differently. So we don't exactly know exactly what paperwork is going to be sufficient, how quickly that paperwork is going to be approved. We certainly know that the government resources we have are tested already. And I think that's going to be a challenge for a fair amount of people in terms of making sure they collect. The thing for the viewers is to make sure that they're on their toes and collecting their data, and they have it available to quickly submit it to the extent that they need to justify the continued unemployment when they need that benefit.
Yeah, you kind of been into my next question to ask you about what should people know and what should they be doing around this time right now, given the fact that you have these changes and these things in front of us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the best idea is to use that old Boy Scout motto and be prepared, right? If you have a set of wage payroll records, make sure you have those available to send by email or fax or whatever. If you don't, make sure you reach out to your employer and ask, hey, I lost my job. I'm going to be asked to verify that I had a job before. Can you please send me my last set of payroll records? I think a lot of people get their direct deposit and they don't have all that paperwork handy sometimes, and they don't think about it. So reaching out to your employer and making sure you have that information available is important, because my suspicion is that the government's not going to be ready to process everything quickly. So those people who have the data right in front of them and are right ahead of the line can get their paperwork in, showing they're entitled to the benefit and get it.
Yeah. Patrick, in the week of Martin Luther King, I got to bring up the Martin Luther King holiday. I want to talk about a new civil rights law that particularly pertains to fast food workers. The New York City Council bill that was approved earlier in January will now be taking effect starting next week.
Yeah, and just a fantastic piece of legislation and a situation where we're the first city to do this, which is absolutely magnificent. The situation is, and I think this is something that's been recognized by virtue of the pandemic. We have 67,000 fast food employees in New York City. 90% of those people are people of color. 2/3 are women. And these are workers with vulnerability in economic times, sometimes even living paycheck to paycheck. The new legislation absolutely changes a longstanding law, which was that you could be fired at any time for any reason. That long-standing law said, if your boss doesn't like you for whatever reason, they can let you go. You're an at-will employee. The new legislation impacting workers in that restaurant industry says, unless your employer has a good, bona fide reason for letting you go, you can't be fired. And if you are, by the way, you have an entitlement as an employee to bring a grievance, to collect attorney's fees, to collect damages, to have a whole arbitration on the case. And if you win the arbitration, by the way, the employer is going to be responsible for paying for all the fees of the arbitration itself. So a huge cushion for these tremendously important workers in New York City in terms of giving them a good chance to keep their solid job and keep bringing us great food like we love in New York.
Yeah, very much a game changer. Talk to me about the owners. Have we heard pushback, appeal? How's that going?
I think there's been some pushback and some discussion. Quite frankly, I think in the wash of all the things that have been happening in the restaurant industry and in the economy overall, we haven't heard the final word on how this is going to be administered and how everybody is going to, how disappointed or not people are going to be in the administration of it. But right now, it's legislation. It's legislation that was passed. It's legislation that's going to make a huge difference to important and vulnerable people out there in our economic community. And boy, I just think we should be very proud as a city to have had this legislation passed.
Yeah. Before I let you go, let's talk about things that we should be looking out for as the clock is ticking. We are now in almost halfway through January, almost towards the end, moving towards February. What things should we be looking for on the legal calendar?
So certainly with the new administration, we're going to have some kind of new initiative and stimulus. How that works and how it's applied is going to be very important. I suspect that in the new legislation, beyond additional stimulus, there may be some reconstitution and recalibration of some of these workers that right now under the FFCRA just must return to work. I think there may be some contemplation for vulnerable people in the community. I think another thing that's going to be very important, Daren, and I don't think something that people are talking enough about yet is these inoculations, right? We have a certain number of people that aren't getting their shots yet and desperately want them, and that's certainly important. But I do think at some point in time, we're going to have a situation where we have people we want to get the shot and people who are perhaps concerned about getting the shot for COVID. And what are going to be the obligations of employees? Are employers going to be making that a mandatory requirement for returning to work or not? Just as an example, I understand from some statistics I saw this morning that the flu vaccine, which everybody's encouraged to get, right? Only about a third of the population was getting that flu vaccine, even though they should have, and most people would encourage them to. So I think very soon, within the coming months, there will be enough supply of the vaccine. But whether or not everybody's going to trust it and want it and take it, or select between the types that are available and trust one more or less, and how that's going to play into the employment law relationship is going to be important development for sure.
Yeah. Patrick Boyd, we're going to leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us here and sharing with us. Certainly, we want to get people more connected, but thanks for giving us all the information that we need to know, especially as these new laws come out and how they are taking effect. Patrick Boyd, thanks much.
My pleasure. Stay healthy and stay safe.
All righty. Well, we've got more show coming up. We want you to stay with us. Open will continue coming up right after this.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community, and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from and welcome back to the show. Children's Aid is one of America's oldest and largest children's not-for-profits. The organization helps children in poverty to succeed and thrive by providing comprehensive supports to children and their families in targeted high-needs New York City neighborhoods. For more than 160 years, Children's Aid has been committed to ensuring there are no boundaries to the aspirations of young people, no limits to their potential, and that they're leading a comprehensive counterattack on the obstacles that threaten kids' achievement in school and life. And joining us now to share a little bit more about Children's Aid is the Deputy Director for Bronx Community Schools at Children's Aid, Ron Cope. And Ron, good to have you.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the time.
Segment's a little personal. I remember playing basketball at Children's Aid in Harlem. And that was one of the places where I'd grown up and found Children's Aid, and I first became acquainted. But I know there's a long history of great work that Children's Aid does. Talk to us about it.
Well, I think the biggest thing that we understand is that we are here to support any needs and also identifying strengths that young people have across the areas that we focus on in New York City. So we are in Central Harlem, East Harlem, Staten Island, the Bronx is where I'm located in the work that I'm doing, Washington Heights as well. So we want to be there for children and families, and there's no better time to be a support to families and children today in these communities. Children's Aid provides youth programming. We focus on core focus areas where we look at children, and we do academics, social emotional learning, health and nutrition, and then we focus on family and community. So when we go into a community, we really put our foot down and really put a stamp on what we're trying to do in communities to ensure that we can remove any barriers from children and families' lives so that they can be successful and thrive.
Let's talk about youth for a moment, because that is our future and that's also our present. As we talk about youth programs, I know you have a variety of youth programs, but talk about the youth of today and some of the work that you guys are doing in trying to build them for a brighter tomorrow.
Yeah, I think the strategy that I am in charge of in the South Bronx is community schools. And what we do with the initiative in partnership with DOE in New York City, but Children's Aid has been a leader in community schools since 1992. What we see as the community school is a strategy to try to pool resources in the school community and make it a hub in the community so that we can address the needs that children and family have right in the school community, where we know we have a captive audience, where people are, and really put all of our resources in the school. So parents don't have to go around. It's a one-stop shop where people can get everything. So in our schools in the South Bronx, we have after-school programming, we have adult education, we have mental health services, we have success mentors that work every day to ensure that students are coming to school and arrive at school safely, meet them at the front door. We also have support for academic support, but also to look at what students' interests are. Do they love the arts? Do they love STEM? Do they love different things that they have interest in that we can bring into the school community as well? And then supporting the families, identifying needs that families have. Is it workforce development? Is it that adult education, GED and ESL courses? Is it food assistance? During this time, it has been specific need about food insecurity in the Bronx. How do we make sure that all of those things are under the school community where we can build positive relationships with families around their children and ensure that we can give them whatever they need? So that has been really essential for us. It was true in 1992 and it's true today in 2021.
Yeah, and I know that when you talk about families and needs, in this time of COVID, there's a lot. There's social, emotional learning that goes on. People are forced to learn virtually. And there's that social, emotional learning component. I know that you guys do great work in that area as well. Share with us a little bit about the social, emotional learning that goes on.
I think it's important to look at this in the multiple ways, but to focus on social emotional learning. One of the things that we had done that was really, when the pandemic hit, one of the things that we did a strategy was to build like needs assessments throughout. And as you're saying, social emotional needs really came up as a need for our children and our families, right? So what we did was we did needs assessments, found out what families needed, and then pooled our resources together. So around social emotional learning, we have, or social emotional needs, we have mental health clinicians in our schools. We have community health clinic here in the South Bronx where we can have parents go there if they have needs, where they need counseling, family counseling. We do have the counselors in the school if they need direct need in the school, where we can give them the services in the school community. And then also we have strategic partnerships in the Bronx where we are able to work with other organizations if there are crises, if there are other things that we need that are outside, because strategic partnerships are essential in understanding that your organization can't do everything, but building strategic partnerships to serve the needs of all families. We also have a preventive care program under Children's Aid's banner, as well as also a Strategist program that does clinical support to families' homes, does home visits for families. So we made sure that we did needs assessment. Then with needs like social and emotional needs, we were able to pool all our resources with different departments, different organizations, and all the resources that we have in our community schools to ensure that we can address all the needs of children and families.
When we look at what's going on right now with children and families, we know there's a big challenge right now amidst COVID is food insecurity, health and nutrition. How are you tackling the issue of health and nutrition with your organization?
That is a great question. We built some, when I say tremendous strategic partnerships around food insecurity and food assistance. I think this has been tremendous for us. So we have a longstanding partnership with Food Corps, where there's AmeriCorps members that work in 3 of our schools in the South Bronx. They directly do health and nutrition, food activities with our students, gardening with our students in the school community. We also partner with a number of organizations, West Side Campaign Against Hunger, that's in Manhattan, but they provided food boxes for our families in the Bronx, produce boxes for our families in the Bronx. We also partner with Rethink Foods, which is a New York-based nonprofit organization that provides warm meals. They partner with actual restaurants and make warm meals, and then we bring them to our schools and distribute them to families. And that has been amazing. We do about 600 meals a week in the South Bronx in 2 of our school locations, which is awesome. We have given out so much food. We're doing 1,000 meals a week across the agency, and 2,000 meals starting next week. So we understand that that's important. We have partnered with the Food Bank of New York City. We have a pantry in the Whitney Young Jr. campus where I am right now. And then we're opening a new location at the Charles Drew campus on 3rd Avenue, 169th and 3rd Avenue. So the Food Bank of New York City has been a tremendous partner with us, opening campus pantries so that we could address the needs in our school communities as well. We've worked with the Food Bank on a number of distributions as well. So these partnerships that have been developed by our Food and Nutrition Division and Health and Wellness Division of Children's Aid, and partner with our community schools and with the community, has been tremendous. We wouldn't have been able to do a lot of this without them and the organizations that we've partnered with.
Yeah. And so how has COVID actually impacted the work that you do?
It has impacted it significantly. Parents are about community schools, right? Is about relationships. It's about building those positive relationships with families so that they feel safe. They feel that they can trust the people that they're working directly with, and we're able to give them the services in a way. And a lot of this is in a safe space in the school community. And now that parents feel disconnected, right? And there was a tremendous shift in connectivity, right? We talk about connectivity a lot, but it was a very big shift to that one-on-one personable type of experience that families were used to experiencing, to now having to use the phone and Zoom and Google Classroom. That had changed the dynamic for a while, and we had to get acclimated to that. We had to help our parents get acclimated to that experience so that we could be able to serve them appropriately during this time. And even our children, it was a huge shift. Our schools had to get adjusted. Teachers had to get adjusted to this experience. But we have done a fantastic job in addressing that connectivity is a problem for our children and our families, and trying to ensure that they have the connectivity so that we can do it and be successful in this community. And to be honest, this may be a new look. This may be our new normal. So we need to get good at it, right? And be able to produce in a virtual environment, and be able to do it in a hybrid way, right? In person and in a remote way and virtual way, and have success in it in serving children and families.
Yeah. Ron Cope, we got to leave it there, but thank you so much for the great work that you're doing with Children's Aid Society. Certainly a benefit to our community. As I said, I've been familiar, grew up with it, and now to be able to report on it and bring it to other people, a great joy. Thanks for being with us, brother.
We appreciate you, man. Thanks for the time. Children's Aid can definitely, children'said.org, children'saidnyc.org. Please have people log on. We appreciate it.
Well, he already said it, but I'm going to say it again. If you want more information, do visit their website, children'saidnyc.org. And of course, you can follow them on social media at Children's Aid NYC. Special thanks to Ron. We'll be back with more coming up right after this.
Thanks so much.
And welcome back. The Disability Services Office at Bronx Community College offers a broad spectrum of services to create an academically, socially, and environmentally inclusive environment for students with disabilities. The CUNY program actually is a unique individualized career development program aiming to empower students with disabilities to acquire the skills and confidence to define their own goals, as well as pursue and successfully fulfill careers after graduation. We recently spoke to the leads advisor of the Office of Disability Services at Bronx Community College, Preston Berger, as well as BCC alum of class of 2018, Tebar. They gave us a special look at the program. Good to have you.
Thank you for having us, Daren. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Thank you. And I'll start off first with you, Preston. Obviously, this program is a program that really bridges the gap, if you will. So share with us a little bit about the program and how it's offered.
Sure. So LEADS stands for Linking Employment, Academics, and Disability Services. So the spectrum of services that we offer to students with disabilities is very holistic and expansive in its scope. For students who meet with me, my goal is to meet them where they're at, get an idea of what their personal and professional goals are, and talk about how they can best use their time in college to get there. That can come in the form of academic advising, resume writing, cover letter writing, interview preparation, job and internship searches, access to networking events such as job fairs, and transfer advisement.
So let me get Ash in and ask about his participation in the program. Talk to me about how the program has been beneficial to you.
When I was at BCC, it was great to just really have an office I can talk to about navigating my disability and how I can, go about it in the working field, in academia, and even in my social life. My learning disability was something that I always struggled with, but having the disability office and talking with Preston, I kind of had like that practice, and they kind of gave me the framework of my academic achievements and then as well as my professional career stuff. So it was great to kind of have that support that I was lacking.
Yeah. And I omitted that you are an alumnus, so congratulations on being that alumnus. But tell us a little bit about that transition from, a person with disabilities entering into the workforce environment and how the program was able to help you successfully navigate that.
Well, it was great because talking with Preston, like I said, I was lacking a lot of confidence in myself. He saw my resume, the experience I had, and I was kind of downplaying it and really not structuring well as to, what my experience was. So that was one thing. He helped me as well as how do I, advertise myself and market myself in a way that employers do want to hire me, and how do I talk about my disability in that so that way does employers support me, and I didn't feel as much of a burden as what I was intentionally feeling. So that was great as well. And even minor things like Preston helping me tie my tie, it was something that I thought was really heartwarming. I always remember it. It's those little tweaks, those little, acts of kindness and compassion that really took me forward and took me back to coming to the office. And I just opened up as a person, I would say, and, took pride in my disability and the disability community to begin with. So I really kind of launched me off from there.
Right. And I think, Preston, one of the things that Ash speaks to is the fact that sometimes when you do have a disability, the tendency is sometimes that you can downplay your skills. And here's a case where Ash had the skills, just needed to really not downplay it, but really show it off. And at the same time, also take that extra step. So I know this is a part of the program, but share a little bit more about what students can expect when they participate.
They can expect, what we can offer them runs the gamut. What's really special about CUNY Leads is that it's individualized and customized to the needs of the particular student. In the case of Ash, I was dealing with somebody who already had a lot of experience. They just needed to find a way to reframe it so that they could market themselves. Then I have a case of someone who has no experience. And in the case of someone like that, we use opportunities such as networking fairs. I will sit with them and help them do a career assessment. I'll help them identify what their strengths and weaknesses are. I'll discuss with them what they plan on majoring in and whether or not that's gonna cater to what their natural talents are, and B, whether or not it actually is in line with what their goals are. Other types of opportunities that I provide students are leadership opportunities. I advise a club on campus called the CUNY Coalition for Students with Disabilities at BCC. We call it CCSD at BCC for short. This is connected to a broader CUNY-wide network called CCSD that's connected to the University Student Senate. Now, a area like this provides students with leadership opportunities to climb up the ranks in student government. I've had 2 students who started at my club now, since the pandemic began, rise to the level of chairperson for the CUNY-wide CUNY Coalition for Students with Disabilities. I've advised students on their campaigns to go after the Student Government Association. I had one student in particular who I advised is now a senator with SGA. I work with veterans as well on helping them tailor their resume from a military resume to a civilian resume. I collaborate with the Office of Career Development on campus. This past October, one great opportunity that I collaborated with them on was a series of workshops in celebration of National Disability Employment Awareness Month. For these workshops, we covered the basics of job hunting, resume writing, etiquette on the job, cover letter writing, interview prep. And then at the end, we held a mini networking fair virtually in which we connected students with 6 different agencies, organizations, and companies whose goal in their diversity and inclusion initiatives is to include persons with disabilities. Not all of these places were hiring, but all of these people were looking for volunteers or interns or just opportunities to mentor students with disabilities.
Yeah, let me just ask Ash a quick question here before we wrap up. Ash also is currently pursuing a Bachelor of Science in Therapeutic Recreation at Lehman College. He's also working at BCC's LGBTQ and Resource Room, serving as an outreach coordinator for the Transcend Project. I want to ask you, Ash, with all of the participation that you had in this program, how much did it prepare you for? Do you feel like you're prepared for where you are today? I mean, currently you got school going on, you're working, but has this program really put you in a place where it's pretty giving you a foundation?
Oh, absolutely. Before meeting Preston and meeting with the Disabilities Office, BCC, graduating from there, that was my end goal, and I didn't have any other ambitions other than that. And even I thought that was something I couldn't achieve, but to be at my last semester at Lehman College studying therapeutic recreation and, pursuing my master's within the year to come is miles from where I thought I would actually be. And even being the coordinator for the resource room, if I didn't have Preston, help me with interviewing skills and updating my resume and, marketing myself, like he said, I would have never applied to that position at the resource room. And so much of the work that I've done would have never happened if I didn't step foot in that room and gotten the support that I did And like I said, majority of that was the confidence I built, the friendships, seeing the community that was surrounding me that really empowered me and supported me in that way was like really eye-opening. So yeah, I'm very proud of where I am now because this was something I never thought that I was even capable of accomplishing. And being in the disability room and meeting Preston, they kind of looked at me and laughed because they kind of saw something in me that I didn't see. And I'm happy that they did that because it did change my life.
Oh, good. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Ash, and congratulations on the great work that you're doing. Preston, certainly we wanted to get people connected to the program. We're going to definitely let them know more about it as we get ready to close out the segment. But I want to thank you guys both for being with us.
Thank you for your time. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I want to let you know for more information, you can visit their website at bcc.cuny.edu. Once again, bcc.cuny.edu. Well, we got more show. We encourage you to stay with us. Open will return right after this. And welcome back to the show. Well, we know every year people get together and they make New Year's resolutions with the purpose, getting rid of old habits, changing their lifestyles, and making a difference. Well, research shows fewer than 10% of individuals actually manage to keep their resolutions for more than a few months. They actually give up on their resolutions due to the inability to get the results that they want. But the question is, why do some people continuously fail to achieve their New Year's resolution year after year? Here now to share a little bit more is career strategist and TV contributor Elizabeth Koraca, who joins us now. And Elizabeth, welcome back and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Always good to be back with you, Daren.
Well, let's go at it. I mean, let's think about this. It's New Year, January, new goals, new ideas. And for some people, we just fall back into the same old thing. So talk to us about how we can really have sustainable New Year's goals and really bring these things to pass. Because as I said in the intro, a lot of people just don't.
Exactly. And you touched upon New Year's resolutions, and I think it's really important to remember that a New Year's resolution is a goal. That's all it is. So you want to treat it as a goal, and you want to create a new habit for yourself. You want to create a new routine. Remember, I want you to visualize what you want your 2021 to look like. 2020 is in the rearview mirror. Leave that garbage behind. Of course, I know there were some high moments and a lot of low moments for all of us. So you want to be keeping in mind, what didn't serve me in 2020? How can I leave that behind? And what do I want my 2021 to look like?
Goals are ultra important. And I think a lot of people do make goals and set goals, but sometimes others, we kind of like fly by the seat of our pants. Talk about the importance of goal setting, what it means, and especially right now, like we're in January, there's still time for people to really get on the wagon.
Exactly, Daren. It is never too late to set goals. And yes, most of us know we should be setting goals, but the issue is a lot of us are not. So when you set a goal, you are now taking control and charge of your life, of what you want your future to look like. As we've just experienced, there is a lot that we are not in control of, but what we can control is the choices that we make in our life. And by setting goals, you are making a choice for a better life, what you want, your dreams. You're in charge and take control.
So as I have these goals, obviously 2021 is in front of me. I'm trying to really actualize them, trying to really, trying to bring them to pass. What happens if I run into that wall? I mean, nobody was anticipating coronavirus last year. I think that just kind of like stopped and impacted everything that we wanted to do. What happens if I hit that wall? Maybe it's not coronavirus. Maybe it's just life happens.
Yes, life does happen. So what I want you to do when you're creating this goal document for yourself, whether it be in the notes of your phone, on a Word document, in a notebook, on a piece of paper, wherever it is, I want you at the top, I want you to write your vision. What do I want my 2021 to look like? What is the vision for my life? Then I want you to go down a little bit and write your purpose. What is my why? Why do I do the things that I do? Your why is your driver. That's what's going to push you forward during those tough times. Then I want you to set priorities for the year. What are my 5 priorities? What is most important to me this year? And then month by month, you can start mapping it out. For example, let's say it is get a new job. Well, don't just put get a new job, write a little action item below it. I'm going to call, Sally, Joe, Bobby by, February 15th. Set some deadlines, put them in the calendar, make it happen.
And we're talking about making it happen. Obviously, a lot of people do make it happen. Some people don't make it happen. But as we talk about achieving those goals, crossing those goals off as you go forward, some people don't know what the goals set for. Give us an idea. What are some things I really should be looking to really make a goal-setting plan or to achieve these New Year's resolutions? I've got some things I want to do. I really can't figure it out in my head. What are some of the things I should be looking at and saying, maybe I need to be going after that?
I want you to brainstorm, write it out on paper, chunk it out, put it in chunks. These are the things that I'm unhappy with, that I'm really not happy with when it comes to my life. I want to change my career. I want to change my job. I want to make more money. Okay. That's a really popular one. I want to lose weight and get fit. Well, if you want to lose weight and get fit, don't just write down lose weight, get fit. I want to lose 15 pounds, by April, let's say April 1st. And how am I going to do that? Am I going to eat better? Do I have an accountability partner? Can I have someone that keeps me on track or is on this journey with me together? And remember your why, like we talked about in our goals document that you're going to be creating. Why do I want to lose this 15 pounds? Is it just to feel better? Is it because I'm on the brink of getting diabetes? Is it because I want to be able to run and run after my kids and not be winded? That is what's going to be your driver. And when we talk about getting a new job, is it because I don't get along with my boss? I don't feel supported by my colleagues. I feel like I'm not making the money I should. Think about your why, create your plan as to how you're going to get there.
What are some of the common mistakes that people make during a time like this? Because we make many.
We sure do. And that's such a great point. We're only human. Nobody is perfect. And we're all going through similar, issues and challenges right now. But what I do recommend is if you want to stay on track with your goals and your dreams and feeling in charge, staying in control, is to have that document printed out, have it on your desk or your nightside table. Stick it to your bathroom mirror. You want to have those reminders. You want to be reminded of what it is you really want, because if you don't, you will fall back into old patterns.
We're on the precipice of really moving into a new presidential administration. We understand that, Joe Biden won. He's got 80 million votes. You've got Donald Trump, who lost, and he's got 70 million votes. So really, we've got a divided country, right? But when we talk about the workspace, when we talk about friends, having a political conversation may not be the most optimum these days. It can be tense. But give us a little bit of some tips now that there's a new president taking office. What are some of the ways that we can navigate having political conversations, if any?
You know what? It's just about being respectful. If there's a colleague that you know that you have two very differing opinions, the workplace is not the place to have that conversation, okay? Perhaps you know of a colleague that might share the same political affiliation or thoughts as you, and perhaps having a conversation with them feels okay and feels right, and you feel supported in that moment. But I also feel like, if you're worried about something, if you're concerned, if you feel like either you're being bullied up against, or you feel like you're in the minority in the workplace when it comes to political affiliation, speak to your manager. Speak to your manager, speak to HR. What are the policies? Because more and more, because as you mentioned, the divide, HR and different firms and companies are setting boundaries more and more when it comes to politics, wearing buttons, wearing t-shirts. Just be aware. It's not that you can't be excited for what you believe in, but there's a time and place, and often the workplace is not the place for that. Do it after hours.
Yeah, but we know that, the way the country is right now, so many people are having conversations, and we're watching, even right now, people are losing their jobs for political purposes. And it's almost like you have to do a great job of safeguarding yourself to make sure that, first of all, that you're not crossing the line, but also at the same time, also in a certain kind of way, being able to keep the peace, right?
Exactly. It's all about, keeping the peace. And it's so hard sometimes when you feel so differently than somebody else. But what I always do is I try to put myself in that other person's shoes. How were they brought up? What kind of home did they come from? What region of the country are they from? What school did they go to? Who are their influencers? Okay. It's not that other person is right and you are wrong and vice versa, but sometimes we have a little bit more understanding of where the other person is coming from, even though you do not agree, okay, and it might not be right, but you want to try to put yourself in that other person's shoes. It will help you feel less angry, less combative, and it will put you in a better, more peaceful and calm state. So I highly recommend doing it.
Yeah. Elizabeth, we got to leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us. We're excited about the new year. Got to bring you back, and we're going to find out how we're all making out with these goals and these ideas, because a lot of us do fall off the wagon, and we definitely need to do our best to keep it going. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daren. A pleasure to always be with you and your viewers.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth. And for more information, you can always visit her website at elizabethkoraca.com and also on her social media platforms at Elizabeth Koraca. Well, we come to the end of our show today, and we want to thank all of our guests for joining us, and most of all, you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, if you missed any part of today's show, you can always catch the Recablecast, Optimum's Channel 67, Verizon Files Channel 2133, and anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. Be sure to tune in on this coming Friday. Rita Valentine will have a brand new episode focusing on arts entertainment, and she'll bring you up to speed. Until then, I'm Daren Jaime saying take care, God bless. Most of all, keep this channel wide open.